Imagine this. You've just picked up that brand new RPG everyone online is raving about. You fire it up, excited to dive into a fresh epic adventure. Things start out promising. You complete the tutorial, the main story kicks off, and finally, you're free to explore the world at your own pace. Naturally, before diving deeper into the main plot, you decide to check out a few side quests. You meet a troubled farmer. What's the issue? Goblins? Bandits? Maybe some ancient curse and stuff? No. He wants you to harvest punships. Not exactly the stuff of heroes, right? So today we're talking about a very important topic, how to design a good side quest. But before we start, greetings stranger. My name is Katie, I'm a writer and a narrative game designer. So here we talk about fantasy, books, games, writing. So if you're interested, you're welcome here. When we think of side quests, the first thing that often comes to mind is the classic fetch quest like bring me 20 potatoes, find a magical sword I dropped somewhere, and all things like this. But side quests can come in many different forms and should ideally challenge a variety of the player's skills. Here are just a few examples like combat-focused quests, stealth missions, and dialogue-driven encounters. For example, in The Witcher 3 there is the quest Fists of Fury, where the player enters a series of arena fights. So the core mechanic here is straightforward combat fighting. Another great example is Skyrim's Snowstone Unturned, where the Dragonborn must track down all the stones of Barenziah to restore a lost crown. So this quest emphasizes exploration as its main mechanic. Or take Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's a perfect example of side quest built entirely around puzzle solving. As a game designer, your favorite question should be why? Why do players take on these side quests? Why should they care? Why isn't this feature working the way it should? And so on and so forth. So when it comes to designing side quests, the key question is, why will the player care? What motivates them to step away from the main storyline and explore more of your world? The answer to this why can vary. Some players are drawn by rich lore, others might connect with memorable NPCs, and for many explorers it's about feeling immersed in the world, soaking in its atmosphere and subtle storytelling. So one of my favorite examples is Red Dead Redemption 2's The Veteran questline. You meet Hamish Sinclair, an old soldier who goes on legendary hunts with Arthur Morgan. These quests are adventurous, peaceful, and deeply human. It feels like reconnecting with an old friend. Late in the game, when you're playing as John, you return for one final hunt, only to witness Hamish's death at the tusks of a massive boar. It's a quite tragic moment, and it beautifully closes the character's arc. So that's what makes players care. It's rarely just about the loot, it's usually about the emotional engagement. But how do we make a side quest emotionally significant for the player? That's much easier said than done. And no, it doesn't always have to be like a tragic tale or a Shakespearean drama. Like, let's save it for your main quest. Side quests are usually more grounded. They tell personal, human-scale stories that feel familiar and real. That is their strength. The beauty often lies in the simplicity, because that's what makes them relatable to the player. Another key element, a good side quest should always lead the player somewhere new. Whether it's a physical location, a new mechanic, or a fresh bit of world building. Why? The same reason fetch quests can feel boring. If the experience doesn't evolve, the player loses interest. Think of side quests like sugar cubes in tea. Too few and the experience is bland. Too many and it becomes syrupy and overwhelming. And finally, great side quests should influence the story. A perfect example is, any companion questline in Baldur's Gate 3. These quests make players feel like their choices actually matter. They create this illusion of control, even though, let's be honest, no matter how branching and complicated your narrative, it's still scripted. And of course, not every side quest needs to tie back into the main story. Yeah, I know. We'll cover that in the structured quest section. So, and let's be real, making every quest interconnected is extremely hard, like painfully hard. Well, unless you're Larian Studios, because these guys are just working straight up narrative magic for me. One of the best examples of emotional engaging storyline in a side quest is The Witcher 3's A Toll Full of Mice. At first it seems like a typical monster hunting job, a cursed island, a vengeful spirit and a mystery, but as the quest unfolds it reveals a tragic and deeply personal story. It takes place on a Fyke Isle, a foggy, decaying place filled with rot, rats and ghouls. Gerald is sent there by Kira Metz to investigate an abandoned tower. Inside, using a magical lamp, he encounters the ghost of Annabelle, the daughter of the island's former lord. She recounts how the mage Alexander had been experimenting on rats using the deadly Catriona plague. When the island was attacked by peasants, Annabelle drank what she believed was a poison to avoid being captured, but it only paralyzed her. Believed dead, she was left behind and, well, eaten alive by rats. Gerald discovers that the curse binding the isle is tied to her. Annabelle claims she is ready to forgive her lover Graham, who left her behind. She asks Gerald to bring her bones to him so he can bury her, and at this point the player chooses. If Gerald takes her remains to Graham, it's revealed that she's a plague maiden, and the act unleashes disease on the region. Alternatively, Gerald can bring Graham to the island. If Graham embraces her, he dies, but the curse is lifted. So this quest does several things right. It introduces a contained atmospheric story with emotional depth. It gives the player moral agency, even if the outcome isn't obvious. And it transforms a seemingly standard ghost-hunted task into a memorable gothic story, one that sticks with players long after they leave Fikile. It's not tied to the main plot, but it reinforces the themes of the game: grey morality, consequences, and the human cost of power. And that's what we should keep in mind. If it is not directly connected to the story, it should still be relatable to the world. What is the quest without characters in it? The human experience is usually what attracts the player's attention. We tend to try it on ourselves. If we see another human being that has the same problems as us, like no money, inability to buy a house, especially if you are a medieval fantasy NPC, all of it makes the game relatable to our real-world experience. Character development is another huge narrative branch, so now we are going to talk about the top of the iceberg. A good side quest shows us relatively small but still a short, complete story within a bigger spectrum of the whole game. And as in all stories, there should be characters and their arcs. Why is it important? Visual feedback for the player is one of the main things in the quest design. The player should see the result of their actions, and it may concern the characters as well. Of course, if we talk about The Witcher's contracts, for example, we'll likely not see any changes in the behavior of the quest givers. It happens because the main purpose of such quests is not to reveal the character's arc and to show the transformation, but to show the monster hunting mechanic of the game. But let's take another example, Disc Elysium. Working Class Woman quest. It's a sort of hidden quest that the player can start when talking to the working class woman on the day 2. She's standing near the bookstore. At first glance, she might seem unbothered, but our co-op intuition tells us something is off. We can start pressing her with questions about her family, particularly her missing husband. She doesn't admit he's missing because deep down, she refuses to believe it. If the player takes on the quest, they will eventually find his corpse near the docks and have to deliver the news to a woman, now left alone with 2 teenagers on her shoulders. This is one of the deepest and saddest side quests I've ever experienced. From the very beginning, the foreshadowing, the detective's intuition tells us that something is wrong and we shouldn't expect a happy ending. But that only makes the final moment more heartbreaking. When we return, she meets us with a weak smile, offering tea or lemonade. They've run out of coffee. The scene is quietly tense. We're about to deliver devastating news and she's trying to read something in our face. In her gut, she already knows. And yet she does her best to smooth over the moment, creating the illusion that everything is under control. Those side quests don't need to be as detailed as the main storyline. It's still valuable when player choices lead to different outcomes. A concept known as branch and narrative. Why is this important? Because players quickly notice when there is only one way to complete a quest. And let's be honest, it's getting boring when the outcome is quite always the same no matter what you do. This doesn't mean that side quests always need to have this complex branching where the player's choices significantly change the quest storyline. Even simple branches can be effective. This usually affect only immediate dialogue or small narrative details like the tone or style or the protagonist's responses. Side quests are like bricks that help you to build the complex narrative of your universe. Though they do not directly support the main storyline, They support and maintain the general tone of it. You may think that side quests are the sort of filler that adds nothing but a bit of spice to your game, but a good side quest reveals the information the player wouldn't get otherwise, like in the Disco Elysium, for example. Whether it's a personal detail about a companion, a hidden truth about the world, or a moral dilemma that mirrors the main conflict, these side quests feel meaningful because they tie back to what the game is really about. And when a side quest can actually impact the main story or how we perceive it, that is gold. Maybe it changes how a major character sees you or subtly alters an ending. Even just a bit of emotional weight added to the final act can make it feel more personal. But what is a quest without a reward? Your quest can be perfectly structured, engaging, and fun. But one of the first questions a player will ask is, what do I get out of it? To make the reward feel truly valuable, there are a few key things to remember. The reward should be known in advance. No one likes a cat in the bag. A clear reward helps build transparency and lets players evaluate the risks. Like, is this worth my time right now? The reward should be meaningful. It shouldn't be something the player can easily find elsewhere. And if it can be bought, the price should be significantly high. Because, well, nobody wants to slay a dragon only to be paid in 10 onions by a grateful farmer. Not all rewards are about XP or gold. Those suit achievers and explorers, the ones who love collecting unique items, rare titles, or even cosmetics. These types of rewards work great in MMOs, but they can also be powerful in single-player games. Just use them wisely. If everything is rare, then nothing really is. Now that we're almost done, let's talk about some typical mistakes. The things you'd better avoid when designing your side quests. Keep your quest logical in time and space. It's not fun when an NPC asks you to retrieve something that's literally within their reach. Their players should understand what the challenge is, because the challenge is fun. There is no joy in fetching an apple from the next room, unless the room is crawling with monsters or cursed or whatever, but still it's a bit questionable. Add post-quest reactions from NPCs. Even just a couple of follow-up lines can do wonders for your world's believability. It shows the world remembers what the player did. Avoid lame or meaningless rewards. As we discussed earlier, rewards matter. If the payoff feels unfair or out of balance with the effort, most players will walk away disappointed, or worse, disengaged. Don't rely on copy-paste quest structures. This is something I personally notice a lot playing, for example, The Elder Scrolls Online. Even though I love the universe really a lot, many quests and even dungeons start to feel early familiar. Same structure, just a different coat of paint. Over time it became, well, a bit boring, but that said, I still adore Elder Scrolls and the whole universe, but, well, the variety matters, even in familiar words. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, feel free to like, subscribe, or, well, share your favorite side quests in the comments. I'd love to hear which one stuck with you, and maybe even cover something in the next future videos. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming!